Hi everyone, and a great big welcome to Women's Business Voice. I'm your host for this episode, Angela De Souza, and I'm thrilled to be joined by my guest today, Eglė Aleknavičiūtė. I hope I said that correctly. I've been practicing. In this deeply reflective episode of Women's Business Voice, we speak with Eglė, wealth, business and purpose strategist, whose journey from a small town in Lithuania to a high-flying finance career in the Netherlands took an unexpected and transformative turn. After years in corporate finance, Eglė realized that something crucial was missing, not just in her career, but in the way that many women approach wealth. Her personal evolution through motherhood, subconscious healing, and purpose work led her to redefine success, not as numbers on a spreadsheet, but as self-worth, energy, and alignment. Today, she helps heart-led women across the world break free from limiting beliefs, rewrite their money stories, and build wealth rooted in authenticity and empowerment. Join us for a powerful conversation with feminine wealth purpose and the kind of healing that changes everything, not just for one woman, but for generations to come. So a great big welcome, Eglė. I'm so thrilled to have you with us today, and I can't wait to dive into your story.
Thank you so much for having me, Angela, and I'm very excited to talk to you today.
I have so many questions I want to ask you, so we'll see how many we can fit into half an hour. I want to chat about your life in Lithuania, your life in the Netherlands, your life as a mom. There's so much to talk about and learn from you. So shall we jump back to life in Lithuania? And do you want to tell us a little bit about your situation there, what it was like growing up there, and how old you were when you moved over?
Yes, I was born in a small town. And it's around 10,000 people right now, I believe. I was in the family of two older brothers who now are both in IT and technology, and I was the youngest sister. And early in age, or early in years, I already knew somehow subconsciously that for me, education was the ticket. I didn't know where, but I knew it was the ticket. So I wore these very big glasses. I was terribly ashamed of those. I was, I think, around 9 or 10 years old when I had to wear glasses. So that was really painful. But I always sat in front of the class, and I just did my best studying. And I went to a musical school, so I was really, really busy all the time. And at the age of 14 is when the first time when I had a chance to go to the capital city of Vilnius to study in one of the best schools in Lithuania, in gymnasium. Best in a way of ambition, of exam ratings and so on. So I took any chance I could to get my education. For me, that was the opening ticket. And so at the age of 18, I then went studying abroad for a first time to Latvia, and then I went to Tanzania to exchange, to Denmark to study my master's, and Rotterdam again for exchange. So I was really driven by curiosity, but also search for, opportunities, for freedom, for learning possibilities. I took every chance that it was to just keep growing.
That's amazing. And you obviously like travel as well, because you've been to quite a few places, even in those early years, with your education. Did you have a real, passion for travel, or was it just that hunger for learning that you wanted to learn about other cultures as well?
It's both. So I love to travel. I love to explore. I love to learn different people, different perspectives, even different foods, different music, different points of view. And at the same time, I was really hungry for learning, and I still am in different ways. But I feel like as human beings, it's really one of our growth desires, one of the basic needs, the growth. Although in the cultures we live, in the systems we live, we forget it. Sometimes we stop either at the age of 18 or 24 or 30. But it's really about learning always about ourselves, about others, about the world around us.
So true. And I was just contemplating the other day, I wonder if we're losing our ability to learn because we have access to information so easily. like, I don't know how the brain works. I'm not a, neuroscientist, but, we can access anything that we ever want to know. So we don't go on that learning journey these days. We kind of get the answers rather than the process. So I wonder if you find that as well in this day and age. You love to learn. Has the way that you learned changed, or do you find the access to the answer quickly? Does it affect the way that you learn, would you say?
And here it's an excellent question. Here I have a perspective also that's related to my learning of subconscious beliefs and learning of our inner worlds, because the question is, why are you willing to learn? A lot of people use learning, but also traveling, shopping, even working to avoid feeling the pain, or to just fill the void. And so, like shopping, learning can also be a way to just get a temporary hit for something new. But there is this deeper, so in my work with Purpose, there is this deeper way of learning about ourselves in our world. And once we tap into this deeper purpose, deeper willingness to learn, any tool and this access to quicker learning, it can even make it easier to reach our goals. And the difference is that once if we're quick in for a quick win in learning, then we read the information and we don't do anything about it. But once we're driven with a deeper purpose, it's just a tool to take the next step. So whether it ends in just our heads, or whether it helps us to take a next step and actually do something in our lives, in our relationships, in our companies, then it's only even more fulfilling. So I find that I get answers now to the information I wouldn't otherwise have. It was privileged to have some of that information. And now with all the tools, it's so much easier to actually find the answers to help to take the next step.
I find there's two different types of people. There's those who just want the answers, and then there's those that actually want the answers in order to take action. And so a lot of people, I find, they're constantly doing courses and seminars, and they're constantly learning. They would call it learning, but they don't translate it into action. And so they don't really progress. Whereas if you're learning and you putting that associated action, then that's when you take steps forward. So speaking of learning, when you finished your studies, you went into corporate, didn't you?
Yes.
So what were you doing in corporate at that time?
I started with project management, and then I had some roles on business analysis and financial analysis, then on financial strategic planning, business control, and my final roles were in finance transformation. So again, program or project management when it comes to change and transformation of the topics of finance and IT.
Wow. So when and how did you make the transition from your corporate role into what you're doing now?
It was all a process, in finance and also in the roles in IT. At some point, I noticed that there are really little women around me. There aren't so many. And this was already the case in studies. It was only maybe 20%. But I was working so hard, I didn't really notice. And now I know that's how the world is. This is statistics. So I started studying unconscious bias. And then I started seeing that it's also harder for me than for others. I was also studying second master at some point. I thought that's what I need to grow in my career, until I noticed that's not the case. So then I studied unconscious bias, and I started to see the way people, and it's not only women, this is just unconscious behaviors, the way people subtly undermine each other, or the way we limit ourselves and people limit each other. And that's how I started studying subconscious beliefs, to understand how do we break this, because it's a fact. There aren't many women in the top positions, in leadership positions. It's really exceptional for a woman to get this far, because the journey, to be honest, is much harder, invisibly harder.
Yeah.
And this is how I started then my own healing journey, but also certified modalities to help break these, inner glass ceilings that makes us believe it's not for me.
Oh, I
that I'm
like that. Inner glass
incapable.
ceilings. That's a very good
Yes.
way of putting it. So is there
Yes,
any
some
of your healing journey that you're able to share? Like, what does that look like for you? How did you break those inner
uh,
glass ceilings?
the moment that I remember when I felt that my glass ceiling broke, it was when I realized that I am capable for more. And it had to do with my corporate career. I had already a business before as a hobby, but somehow, so I had this entrepreneurial spirit always, but somehow I didn't have a vision yet that I could have my own company as my career. I just didn't believe before that this could be my life. But there was a moment, and of course, it comes with this pain, with unconscious bias, and so on, where I woke up to the fact that it's up to me to make it the reality. And then this healing journey for me is about clearing all these limiting beliefs and also getting in touch more and more with myself and my leadership. And motherhood was here definitely also a factor. That's where I saw even more how much more hard for women is to carry the invisible load, the societal expectations, and so on in business, but also home.
And was there like a particular incident or moment, or was there like a clear light bulb moment when you were aware of your limiting beliefs, or was it gradual and more of a journey? Or was there
It
something that
was,
really triggered it?
yes, it was definitely a journey. So I started with all kind of alternative modalities and alternative healing modalities, and I started getting in touch more and more with my own self. So when I said, about learning and about how people look externally, either for validation or for specific fulfillment from maybe diplomas or from achievements and so on, there was a more and more a moment where I felt that nothing from outside can fill the gap
Yeah,
within. And that's where
so
I
true.
started turning within. And then more and more, I got in touch with me and what I see in corporate, but in general, everywhere around us, that we are not so in touch with our intuition and with the bodies, with our own bodies and with the information that's there. So that was the journey to learn to hear what the body is saying, what the heart is saying. The science today talks about the heart intelligence, about
Yeah.
the electromagnetic field of a heart that's much bigger
Wow,
than
really?
that of a brain. Yes. So
Really?
this,
Wow. That's fascinating.
yes, yes. So there is this measurement of the way the signals, electromagnetic waves, and the heart, it's so much more powerful than that of a brain, but often we're in coherent states, which leads to stress and anxiety. So it's living from the head. And then the more and more we land to our bodies, we start to feel what's true for us. And this was my healing journey too, of that, of alignment.
Wow. Oh gosh, I can see how powerful that is. And I can see that so many of us probably don't know. We don't know that we don't know yet. So completely unaware that there's even this whole kind of disconnect between our heart and our mind in the first place. And I imagine that's why there's so much stress in modern living, is because we're constantly living from the head. And that's exhausting, isn't it?
Definitely. And these are all coping mechanisms too. So it's not from that will, but it's also the generation, this survival patterns that are being passed on. And because we don't have a luxury to process the pain or feel the pain, we cope by, at least I, but also I know many other people who stop feeling completely. We think we just have to be strong. We have to pick ourselves up and do what's necessary. And that's true to some extent. But once we start aligning and once we start feeling more what's right, this is where we can reduce some of the weight. And then we can create this life from alignment.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess that's got a lot also to do with intuition, like, especially in business, there's this whole sense of an entrepreneur has a real gut feel about things. And sometimes that gut feel, that intuition, even conflicts the numbers. It can go against logic. And yet some of the most successful businessmen and women in the world, they've just had that real deeper sense, gut feel, I suppose you could call it. I'm sure there's a better scientific term, but I've definitely come across that in my reading and research, that there is, and I've experienced in my own journey as well. Even this year, I made a major decision because I just knew it was the right thing to do. But it conflicted. And even my advisor said, no, it's not going to work. And guess what? It's working. Yay. But, there is that thing that you're speaking about. It just makes so much sense. And then the other thing that you do, you do a lot of work with finances and women, don't you? So is it relationship with finances, or is it financial education? What sort of things do you do with finances?
Yes, so I spoke just now about the inner world, but it's also the outer world, the strategic part. So when it comes to energy, there are also so much conditioning that tells women, don't talk about money. You should be ashamed to even want more. Don't brag, because then you're arrogant. So these are all conditionings we carry. And so from energy, we can clear and release those limitations. And then it comes to strategy and also building net worth. So it could be investing, it could be also expanding in business, it could be building different income streams, anything that's related to either personal finance situation or the own business situation. We work with both the strategic part and then the emotions, limiting beliefs around it.
And how, you probably won't have an exact number, but just to guess, what percentage do you think of women in business are not achieving their potential because of these financial blocks? Do you have a rough idea? Do you think it's quite a high number?
This is a very interesting question you ask, and I only have a philosophical question to this. I think, and what I see, that there is always next step for everyone. So I feel that no matter where in your journey you are, as a listener as well, there is always a next step and something to release. And even those who are the most successful in the world, even for those, there are some weight to release. Sometimes even when we're achieving great things, we are not always achieving them in the most harmonious ways or not in the most long-term ways. And once we start clearing the emotions, there is much more harmony that comes about. And there is another factor of also being able to see and value what we already have. So this feeling of abundance. And it's not always related to the bank account itself. So when it comes to numbers, there is always an expansion possible. And then we look, what's the drive? Are we doing because we are looking to fill the gap, or is there a way to expand from fulfillment?
Wow, gosh. That opens so many other questions up. I wonder, so to answer my own question of what percentage, is probably 100% then. Like we are all...
I would say.
Yeah. Wow. That's so interesting. So anybody watching, anyone listening to this, there's still room to grow. There's still more for you, and there are potentially blocks and things that you could be dealing with. So, Eglė, I think you're going to be very busy with a lot of inquiries after this. If it's 100% of us, that we can progress. There is more, and I agree with you. There's more. The thing that I love about what you're saying is that sense of purpose. For me, that's something I'm also deeply passionate about. I don't like to do anything without a sense of purpose. And I don't feel like things are sustainable without that sense of purpose. And so whenever I'm interviewing somebody who wants to start a business and they're like, I want to make $1 million or I want to make money, I'm like, well, that's really not a good reason. You've got to have that deeper purpose, because in business, things get tough. And if you don't have a purpose, you're not going to make it through the tough times. You'll just give up and move on to the next money-making thing, or, that sort of thing. And so what is my question for you? How do we know it's a two-part question. How do we know if we are leading from or running a business or leading even our life from a place of purpose? Like, are there any ways that we can tell? And if not, how can we start to discover our purpose? And I know that's a loaded question, so take as much time as you need to answer.
Excellent question. There are some ways to discover it, and it's always a journey. It's a process to always check in and also even realign. The way our minds work, they want to have it now, already today, and the way mind expect it's linear, but this is not how the world works. It's not how life works. And this feeling and purpose is felt in the body as well. And the way we can feel is to ask ourselves, will I still do it? If no one would pay me, if no one would recognize me, if no one would give me compliments, if there would be no external validation at all, if I wouldn't get money, would I still enjoy doing it? This is one way to do it. And I'm not saying that we should just blindly do this, because it's important also to look if there is a need in the market. Do we serve an actual problem? Is there someone who can pay money? That's the business side that comes in, the positioning. However, this purpose way is to check in with ourselves. Is this what gives me true fulfillment? And there are a number of questions to ask. If we would have $10 million on the bank account, what would I do tomorrow? This is actual question I asked myself 10 years ago.
It's such a good question. Yes.
And then it leads to falling away of those things that actually don't fulfill, and then adding more and more of those things that fulfill. So these inner drives come more and more forward. And why it's so important in business and life, because then it's much easier to stick to it long term, because there are good days and there are bad days.
Exactly.
So if we're only for external validation, the bad days will be hard. We will want to stop and we will just give up. But once we have this internal drive and we're listening to ourselves from within, what do we want to mean in the world? How do we want to, what do we want to impact? What do we want to leave differently than we found? These are all bigger ways to look at what is it that we do day to day, which makes even the more maybe repetitive or tougher tasks also more fulfilling. More difficult days, lighter to endure. Yeah.
I come across many women who are really passionate about what they do. They love what they do. They're good at what they do. It seems to be their purpose, but they can't make money from it. They struggle to generate an income. Would you say that there's something going on subconsciously there, or a limiting belief, or are some things just meant to be hobbies for the soul and other things are meant to be businesses?
I think that this is very personal, and yet both those aspects play a role. Once we start clearing these limiting beliefs, there are also a lot of beliefs that limit women for asking for money for what they do, because historically, the work that women did, it was unpaid. It was emotional labor, it was cooking, it was child caring. So it wasn't expected for women to earn money, because the men, they went out and they brought the money, and then the woman, they ensured that everyone is emotionally understood, that everyone is fed, and so on. And these limitations, they are still living today unconsciously. So clearing those is really, really important to understanding that the work that I do is valuable. So even if we talk, emotional work, where it comes to listening, to people supporting, and so on, we have a lot of these glass ceilings that also tells us I shouldn't ask money for this. Or if I do something good for other people, I'm not allowed to earn from this myself. These are simple limitations, the game, the shame, the guilt, the fear. And on the other hand, what you see is also that definitely in the startups, people solve the problems they're aware of, and investors invest in the problems they're aware of. And what you see also, because of this historic, that there are a lot of men who are doing B2B services to the businesses, who are working with technology, who are getting investors. And these are places where there is a lot of money. And then women are also solving a lot of home problems, well-being problems. And this is not always the problems that investors know, because they're mostly male statistically. And so this is this whole game to find, okay, how do I feel strong enough to value my work and to ask for money? And also, how can I recognize the market potential and position myself to where there are people who want to pay money for my services? Yes.
I think there's a lot of work still to be done for women in this space. And then the opposite side of the story, I've spoken to women who have taken a work break, potentially long term, to raise children. They want to stay home, they want to be there for their children, and they struggle with mom guilt, constantly feeling guilty because they're not bringing any money into the family budget, but yet the work they're doing, in my opinion, is so valuable, but making a home and raising children, if you choose to do that, I mean, men do it as well, so I'm not, comparing, but I'm just speaking from a woman's point of view at the moment. I think it's very precious, it's very valuable if you've chosen to take that time off to build a home and build a family. What would you advise, or how would you advise these women to be able to see that as their purpose and not have that guilt for not working?
Yes.
Because it is work, isn't it? It's hard work. Building a home and raising a family is really hard work. And yet those women feel guilty because they deemed as not working.
Yes, this is a very familiar topic for any mother, working or not working. The mom guilt is definitely the one that travels from generation to generation. It's never enough because you have little humans who are completely dependent on you. And every time you choose any moment for yourself, you feel like you're betraying them. So you're faced with those moments, you betray yourself or you betray someone else, which I found, being a mother and working also in finance at the same time, I found mothering much harder than running financial projects because of this emotional weight that you have to face with these dilemmas. And the way I find that it helps is actually to quantify. So that's where numbers and finance come in. Even if you make a calculation, how much the childcare, and high-end childcare, because you have your whole heart, you're probably caring for 1, 2, 3, or five children. So it's very personalized. If you put a price to that per hour and you calculate number of hours, you see how much your work is actually worth.
Yes.
And that already, it's unfortunately that in the society we are not yet able to see its invisible work. But once you start quantifying and start discussing these kind of numbers, there are, your eyes open. And then think also about making meals or making logistical arrangements for the whole family. If you put the number and the price tag to all the work that you do, It's really like a wake-up call. And it's not 8 hours per day. It's 18 hours, 7 days.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a lot.
Per week. Yes.
Yeah. So what one piece of advice would you give to a mum who's struggling with mum guilt?
I would then bring back to the topic of choosing yourself. Despite, of course, that the guilt is the emotion that we can clear and then eyes opens for new choices. But choosing yourself, I feel like it's a message that's not passed along enough. It's being seen as arrogant and so on. But the more you start feeding yourself and choosing yourself, at the end, it helps your family too. And even if you do this calculation about how much your work actually costs, even start thinking which moments can you start generate income in different ways. So, and I say income, but I mean there is resources of energy, there is a resource of time, and there is a resource of money. So of course, choosing to your family as a purpose, there is nothing wrong with that. But see if you can feed yourself in other ways than with your energy and with your time then, if not with money, to ensure that you also have your own life and you're not only losing yourself in self. sacrifice.
Yeah, that's so true. And you hit on something very interesting. We value money, we value finance as a resource and deem it valuable, but energy, and there's so much more to life than just money, and the balance between all the different elements of life is really important. And yet we often find ourselves striving to make more money, but do we strive to focus on our energy, or do we strive to focus on our purpose, or do we put as much effort into the other areas of life? And I think for most of us, we would say no, because we have to make money, we have to pay bills, and so that always takes top priority, which is a pity in many ways, because I think it robs so many of us of a fulfilled life, and then you just end up exhausted, and what do you have to show for it? It's really hard to find that balance. Do you have any tips for us if we do find ourselves in that hamster wheel of just trying to get through life? Do you have any tips for us how to get off that hamster wheel and start to build a more balanced life?
This is one step at a time. And once we start working with net worth and looking at the long-term financial situation, we also look at other factors such as energy and time. How do you want to spend your days? What's truly fulfilling for you, and how can you already bring more of that in your day-to-day life now? So it's really about making the choices for tomorrow, for later, working now to maybe save money, to earn money, but also what is it that I'm really striving for, and how do I bring more of that here today? And once we move attention to that, many more possibilities open, maybe not in one day, but it's really the step by step. So my advice is to direct attention, to look into that deeper purpose. What is it that I want long term? And then start creating more of that already in small ways on the daily life. And you would be surprised how much is possible once we start taking these small steps. Within a year, within 5 years, within 10 years, complete transformations are possible for anyone.
Wow. Yeah, I totally agree. I think you can't wait till tomorrow. You have to start today, even if it's a small baby step, because tomorrow never comes. And so I think we're always waiting for when I've paid that bill, or when I've broken through that barrier, or when I've got that master's degree. And then it's just another thing comes, and then suddenly 20 years have passed. Whereas I agree with you. If you start to put small things in place to bring about that balanced lifestyle every day, just something small. After a year, after 5 years, like you said, you can see complete transformation. So thank you for that. That's a really good tip. I think let's end off with you. Let's talk about you, Eglė. What is your dreams for the future? And if we at Women's Business Club can support you in any way, what could we do for you?
My dreams in the future. So I'm moving a country again.
Really? Where are you moving to?
We are moving with my family to Spain short term. So this is a beautiful life choice that we've been also creating long term. So this is what I'm celebrating. And the second part is, of course, next to my family is my business and my purpose to help as many women as I can with financial and emotional liberation. So any shame, guilt, fear feelings, but at the same time, the personal or business finance part. This is the intersection that I work with. And once you ask, what can Women's Business Club do? I appreciate this opportunity to already speak with you. And, for me, it's reaching as many women as I can to make sure that I help them with their financial and emotional freedom.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for that. We're definitely going to spread this far and wide. I think so many women need to hear more about what you do and come to you. I know I'd love to come to you and chat with you as well. So I'm sure others listening to this would love to chat with you. I've already identified so many blocks and I'm sure you can help. So Eglė, thank you so much for chatting with me today. I appreciate your time and I appreciate everything that you're doing to help women find their freedom. And I'll pop some links wherever we share this video or this podcast. I'll pop some links and hopefully we can send more people your way.
Thank you so much, Angela, for also your work supporting women and the Women Business Club.
You're welcome. Right, well, that's it. So thank you so much. And we will see you over on the next episode of Women's Business Voice. Thank you, Eglė. Goodbye.
Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you for joining us on Women's Business Voice, where women rise, lead, and make an impact. If you loved today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a woman who needs to hear this. Want more inspiration? Visit womensbusiness.club to connect, grow, and be seen. Until next time, keep showing up powerfully. The world needs what only you can bring.